안녕하십니까. 오늘 아주 귀하신 두 분을 모셨습니다. 한 분은 우리가 너무나 잘 알고 있는 위키피디아를 창업하신 지미웨일스 씨입니다. 또 한 분은 우리가 현재 가장 앞서가고 있는 기술로 생각하고 있는 가상현실의 세계적 권위자이십니다. 콰미 페레이라 씨를 또한 모셨습니다. 이 두 분을 먼저 여러분께 소개해 드리겠습니다. 지미웨일스, you came from London, LA this morning.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, long way here.
I live in London, but I was in LA and then I came here, so I'm on my way around the world.
Yeah, Kwame, you came from London.
I came from London, yes.
Yeah, how come you met together here?
Well, we've come to see you. Now we've been working together on a new project called Wiki Tribune, and Kwame has very generously helped me to get it launched, and has introduced me to friends in Korea to come and explain what we're working on.
네, 두 분은 위키 트리뷴이라는 새로운 형태의 뉴스 매체를 지금 창업을 하셨습니다. 한 2-3주 정도 된 걸로 알고 있는데요. 이것은 위키 트리뷴이라는 그런 매체를 통해서 가장 믿을 수 있는 매체를 하나 만들겠다 하는 그런 취지로 시작을 하셨습니다. 우리가 지금 페이크 뉴스에 시달리고 있는데 이런 페이크 뉴스를 철저히 배제하고 믿을 수 있는 뉴스만을 가지고 하나의 매체를 창립해서 운영하시겠다 하는 그런 취지였습니다. 우선 그걸 창업한 이 전후 과정이라든가 동기라든가 또 운영 체제라든가 이런 걸 좀 말씀을 해주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
Yeah, so Wiki Tribune is a new platform which brings together a community very similar to Wikipedia with professional journalists working together side by side to fact check the news and to produce something new on the news scene. The idea is to get a very high quality community of thoughtful people together to assist the journalists, but also to make sure that the journalists are being fair and covering the sources accurately.
그런데 이게 이제 어떤 그 월급을 준다거나 그런 형태의 보상 이것을 하지 않고 하나의 그 프로페셔널들의 도네이션 지식 기부 이런 형태로 운영하실 걸로 알고 있는데 그게 현실적으로 대단히 어려울 텐데 어떻게 그걸 매니지 하시려고 하는 건지.
Yeah, so for me, the advertising only business model, which a lot of news platforms have been forced to accommodate in recent years, has been very destructive of quality. When everyone is just chasing after the maximum number of page views to run as many ads as possible, it leads to clickbait headlines and fake news and so forth. Whereas if people need to read to the bottom and then feel moved to say, oh, this is important, I should contribute, I should support this, then it drives you to do something different quality-wise. In terms of how do we get started and get launched, we're doing a crowdfunding campaign to get early supporters of the idea, people who believe that we should have a different form of news, that we should have quality in news, to sign up and help us to get started and to get launched. And then from there we have to deliver. We have to deliver something that's meaningful to people.
But crowdfunding의 경우에 그 도네이터가 필요한 건데 그럼 그 사람들은 이 트리뷴을 운영하는데 그 보이스를 어떻게 내는 건지 그분들은 무엇 때문에 도네이션 하는 건지.
Yeah, so when people are signing up as monthly contributors, we will ask them what types of topics we want them to cover, or we want our journalists to cover. And I think this is an interesting mechanism because rather than chasing what's the most popular, we pace the things that are people are most passionate about. I believe there are communities of interest who are underserved by the popular media, people who are very passionate about particular topics. I always give the example of Bitcoin as a very passionate community, but there are many of these where they may feel that the existing news media is not doing a good job of covering their area because they're too busy chasing celebrity news and so forth, because that's what gets the most clicks. And so I think there's going to be something really interesting around this idea of specific communities, and it can be smaller towns, those kinds of communities, who have seen in many parts of the world a real loss in the number of journalists working in smaller towns. And people do feel that loss, and I think they are ready to say, okay, yes, we want to contribute. We need good quality journalism, looking at what our local government is doing and things of that nature.
그럴 경우에 이제 그 타픽에 관해서 글을 잘 써줄 수 있는 그런 프로페셔널들이 voluntarily 글을 써야 될 텐데 그 링키지는 어떻게 해결하시는 건지.
So we will be hiring professional journalists because we know that in the past there are many volunteer news sites which have done some interesting things, but they've never really been fully able to succeed. And I think this is because although there are great, passionate and talented people willing to do good work in a community, if you're working part-time from home on a topic that interests you, you aren't able to do everything that a journalist needs to be able to do. And so my approach is to say a hybrid model. Let's find the things that a community of passionate people can do from home, and find the things that journalists can do, and only journalists can do. And then we pay the journalists to do those things.
And change the subject. You developed the platform.
No, I haven't developed a platform. What we've done is we've helped launch the crowdfunding campaign, and through our connections in Asia, and namely in Korea, we thought it would be pertinent to have this conversation over here, because as Jimmy was saying, if we get enough traction in Korea, there's no reason why we shouldn't have a Korean presence and Korean content, right? And that's what's wonderful about this platform, is that it's driven by the community in that respect.
우리 IFS 포스트도 철저하게 이 도네이션, 그러니까 프로페셔널의 라이팅도 도네이션이고 또 이 운영하는 이 펀드도 도네이션, 그 스몰 썸으로 그렇게 해서 운영하고 있기 때문에 지금 이제 생각하시는 그 트리뷴하고 유사한 점이 있어요. 그런데 이제 지금 말씀 들어보니까 그 크라우드 펀딩 그게 성공하느냐 안 하느냐에 따라서 이제 트리뷴이 잘 운영될 수 있느냐 없느냐 하고 연관이 되는 것 같은데 지금까지는 성공적인 건가요?
So we're just a little bit over halfway through the crowdfunding time period, and it's gone very, very well so far. We are at the level of 60% of where we want to be, but we also have some larger grants that are being finalized now. So we feel very confident that we're going to be able to meet our minimum funding requirement. But of course, one of the interesting things about journalism is it does scale linearly. If we hire 10 journalists, we can do a certain amount of work, but if we hire 20, we can do a lot more. And so hopefully the public will continue to support, because we really want to get as much support as early as we can to really get to scale quickly.
Now let's turn to the fake news. Recently in Korea, we elected new president. During the campaign, many fake news appeared, and sometimes it gave many people very hardship. But we should distinguish the fake news from the true news. How can you manage it?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that has happened is that the business model of news, when it's purely advertising funded, means that speed is really important. It means that truth is not that important. What is important is shareable headlines, exciting headlines. And I think this has actually gotten much worse in the last few years as we've seen the rise of programmatic advertising. So for many people, it doesn't matter where you go on the internet, you see the same advertisements, because advertisers are now able to buy you and your browsing history rather than the publication. And so now publications no longer have a brand value to advertisers. And so the ones who go for the bottom and go for the fastest, most shareable, most clickable make the most money, and the ones who pause and reflect and think and put out quality find it very difficult in that environment unless we get to the point where people are willing to pay again. And so I'm very encouraged by things like the New York Times, one of the most important newspapers in the world, has gone from 1 million subscribers to 1.8 million in about 1 year. So it seems the public is beginning to understand that if you want quality, you really do need to support quality journalism, because the advertising model leads us in a very bad direction.
And to your point of, how do you weed out fake news? I think Wikipedia has proven that an intelligent and committed community of individuals just like you and I, using the wisdom of the crowd, is able to identify flaws in content, is able to improve content, and that needs to be the spirit behind it. And they're actually able to do that very quickly. You'd be surprised as to how quickly they can do that. So it's utilizing that synergy between professional journalism that's driving it, and then this whole community that's just making it better, right? And that's what Wikitribune is about.
이제 그 말씀은 커뮤니티에서 자발적으로 페이크 뉴스를 걸러낼 수 있는 그런 지적 능력을 가지고 있고, 그분들이 적극적으로 참여해서 페이크 뉴스를 이제 스크린한다, 그런 말씀이신 것 같은데, 그게 지금까지는 이제 성공적으로 되고 있다, 지금 그런 뜻이신가요?
I hope so. I mean, one of the problems that we've seen on social media platforms that have no gatekeeping function of the community is that fake news gets shared from naive people to more naive people. So whereas in Wikipedia it's the most sophisticated people who edit Wikipedia all the time will say, no, this is not a valid source. We need a more respected source. Whereas in other places things get shared. So I think you can construct software that encourages the best people to have more authority and more power, so that other people who are maybe not so interested in news don't get tricked by things that shouldn't be shared.
그렇다면 이제 위키피디아의 경험, 그리고 그 위키피디아에 조인하고 있는 분들의 전문성, 그게 큰 도움이 되고 있다, 그렇게 이해가 되는데.
Yes. We're launching this as a completely new platform. It's completely independent of Wikipedia, and I'm bringing together a group of people who have experience with digital communities, people experience with journalism, and I'm actually always looking to add more thoughtful advisors to help me understand local contexts and local matters, but also to help as we move forward. Be an oversight to say, okay, is this working? Is this not working? How do we improve it as we go along? I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship and lean startup methodology. To don't try to think of everything a priori. Get started and try and make adjustments as we go along. So it won't be perfect when we launch, but hopefully it'll be okay, and then we'll make it better and better.
그러면 결국 광고에 기초한 이제 저널리즘하고 이렇게 크라우드 펀딩에 기초한 저널리즘이 결국 경쟁에 갈 것 같은데, 전망을 어떻게 보시고 계시는지?
Well, I mean, I think that we'll have certain advantages in terms of hopefully an incentive structure that drives us towards quality instead of driving us towards the maximum traffic. But of course, the content industry or the media industry is so large. There's, I think, always room for more. And actually, a lot of journalists are quite hopeful about this. The journalists I've talked to, they're working in positions where they say, this isn't really what I dreamed of when I was young and wanting to be a journalist, that I have to write things with ridiculous headlines to get clicks and so forth. And so I think people have a hunger to turn back to a more serious media.
한국의 경우는 이제 포털 사이트가 있어가지고 네이버나 다음이라는 이름의 그 포털 사이트에서 보도를 이렇게 소개해주지 않으면 매체들이 뭘 하고 있는지가 일반 사람들한테 잘 안 알려지고 있는 그런 상황이 이제 있어요. 그래서 가령 ifs 포스트 우리가 하고 있는 것도 포털 사이트에서 우리의 그 게시된 내용을 알려주지 않으면 알기가 어려운, 그 말하자면 직접적으로 이 뉴스의 컨슈머들하고 접촉할 수 있는 그런 그 통로가 아주 제한되어 있는 문제가 있는데, 이 위키피디아 위키 트리뷴의 경우에는 그런 어려움은 전혀 그러면 없는 건지.
So one of the things that I'm always very open to is content partnerships and sharing. I come from sharing economy culture. So one of the things that we'll be doing is placing everything under a free license so that portal sites like Naver or DOM can freely work with us and take and distribute the content. They don't have to pay us for this. So we are more interested in having readers and getting information to people. But of course, indirectly, this will help us because if people have access, it'll be very difficult for us to charge Naver money for this. We just want them to share the word.
그러나 한국에서는 아까 말씀하신 대로 그 헤드라인이 아주 인트레스팅 해야 이걸 보는 경향이 있기 때문에 이게 이렇게 그 위키트리뷴처럼 진실만을 추구하는 경우에 흥미가 좀 떨어질 수 있어서 포털 사이트는 클릭을 많이 하는 사람들, 많이 하는 뉴스 중심으로 보기 때문에 좀 어려움이 있지 않을까, 지금 그런 염려가 좀 됩니다.
Yeah, well, it's a challenge to be overcome. One of the things I believe from my own past work, Wikipedia, of course, is very, very popular in every country around the world, and it's popular even though the headlines are quite straightforward. It's just the name of a person or a thing. But it also is a brand people remember. So they say, oh, okay, if I want the facts, I need to go and check, and I know what I get at Wikipedia. And I know it's not perfect, but it's, you know, I know what I'm getting. But I do think there's a challenge. But I also think that people are maturing and people are sensing. I think many of us have clicked an attractive headline and then we read some stupid story and we think, oh, why am I wasting my life, you know? And now I think a real hunger to say, no, I would like to click on things. Also, we know that around the world, the major portal sites like Facebook and all the others are coming under some pressure from consumers, from governments, from the media to say, you know, why are you sharing all this low quality content? And so I think that the portal sites themselves are beginning to think about, oh, well, maybe they need to combat these clickbait headlines, because even though it superficially gives traffic, it doesn't really give a quality experience.
Kwame, you are one of the leading augmented reality experts in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And every media has the aspect which should attract people. That is the interesting part.
Yeah.
And augmented reality might have some collaboration point with the media.
With Wikitribune, I honestly haven't really thought about it. It's such a different proposition. You see, with augmented reality and virtual reality, you're inhabiting a world that is increasingly saturated with information, right? Wikitribune, I always saw it as a place where I find some peace of mind, because there's just so much out there in terms of news, and you follow and you clickbait and you follow these links and you do that, and you don't really know where you stand, and you don't know if you're learning something or whether there's some agenda behind it. And to have this space that is fundamentally different, that paint the right picture, you know, in an unbiased way, I find that's actually opposite of AR and VR. For me, that is just peace of mind. And that's what I would like.
I have one idea. I actually do think there's something about the VR, the ability to experience a place or a person in a really immersive way that I would love to. I'd love to watch an interview with an interesting scientist or something, and instead of just a box, right, if I can sit in the scientist's office and as he's talking I can look at the bookshelf and see the laboratory around me, and I really feel I'm there. It's fact-based, but it's quite an interesting, different experience.
We're going to East Africa next week, and we're taking some VR cameras to some refugee camps, because it's the wonderful thing about VR and AR is that, especially VR, it creates an immersive environment that catalyzes empathy, so you become much more present in that space, to Jimmy's point. So I think there's definitely, I mean, the New York Times, there's some big publications out there that have been playing with it, but I don't think anyone has really been doing it very, very seriously. Everyone's kind of just touching the water and saying, oh, it's this. So Wiki Tribune is a new space, and so there's so much opportunity there to experiment, right? We can't do everything, right?
Yeah.
So we need to go step by step, and I guess the first thing really is to engage our community, understand what it is that they need, what is it that they want, and how can we provide the best possible service from a news perspective. If it includes AR and VR, we're here to help. Right?
Yeah. You contributed a lot by founding the Wikipedia. So you are now going to another frontier. I think it will be very successful. Especially the trust is important in the media, but these days, as you indicated, advertising and some very exciting headline, it does really matter. Can you give some message to Korean people or Korean media men, your main message founding this new media?
Well, I just think quality matters, and I think that this is something that we're seeing a movement of consumers that they're beginning to push back. They hunger for quality information, but also we can think of it as purely a business proposition to say there's an opportunity to do things of quality because the public is now seeing it going wrong. But we can also think about your civic responsibility, that for the media, it's not for the media to guide what choices we make democratically, but to make sure that when people make the choice, they're doing so on the basis of genuine information. And that's the fundamental responsibility of journalism. It's meaningful, it's ethical, it's something that makes life valuable. And so I encourage people to pursue it. It's great fun.
So you are not rich.
Well, only if you compare me to Mark Zuckerberg or the Google guys. But in any sane world of thinking, I think I'm very rich. When Kwame goes to visit refugees, we look at all the suffering in the world. My life is it's very interesting. I'm from a quiet city in Alabama, and now I come to Korea and I get to meet interesting people, and I go all around the world. I live a very full and rich life that I feel very pleasured by. And I always say, if you go I live in London, and there's so many bankers in London who have far more money than I'll ever have, but their lives must be so boring compared to mine, that my life experiences are very rich, and that's something that I cherish.
Your wife agree with you?
Yeah. Luckily.
That's good. As we live together in this world, the value which we pursue toward trust is really important and contributing to improve this world. 오늘 런던으로부터 오신 콰미 씨, 그리고 LA에서 오신 지미, 이 두 분 모시고 이 두 분이 추구하고 있는 어떤 그 정신적 세계, 이것을 아주 보람 있게 잘 들었습니다. 이 두 분이 추구하고 있는 새로운 형태의 이 미디어, 이것이 반드시 성공하기를 바라고, 저희 같이 그런 류의 미디어를 추구하는 IFS 포스트도 이 모델을 따라서 좋은 가치를 성취해 보려고 노력하겠습니다. 오늘 두 분께 참 감사합니다. Thank you very much for your visiting this studio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.